Hey guys, I just finished a book that I wanted to share with you that I highly recommend that you read. It's called Dopesick by Beth Macy. And it's a book about the opioid, heroin, and fentanyl crisis, really seen through the lens of one community. And it opened my eyes more and more to see what's actually going on and why that's going on, how that's transforming communities, how it's transforming families. And so it's really interesting. She's a really good storyteller, focusing on people, giving a big view of the history of the crisis, but also the things that have driven it, possible solutions that people are approaching in that. And so a few things came to mind as I read it. One, it's affecting like the people that you and I know. Um, there's probably addiction on our streets. If you don't know it already, there's probably addiction going on your street. You've likely been affected by children, parents, loved ones, family members, people that you went to school with who are facing this. And a lot of the time, we just kind of tuck those into the shadows and act like, oh, it's not happening in my family because that would be embarrassing. Like shame and guilt over that really causes people to kind of like cover up and hide instead of bringing that out into the light. So that's probably affecting you and the people that you know. But it's just so embarrassing and so shameful to talk about that it's just kind of blossoming right under our noses. So it's a really great book, really interesting. It opened my eyes. But it also made me realize, you know what? Doctors and nurses, caregivers, first responders, police officers, teachers, it's affecting everybody in our community. And it's affecting, some of them are like taking in just horrible things, seeing horrible things and stuffing it down and not being able to deal with it. And so it's actually important that we bring this kind of an issue to the light because if it's hidden in the shadows, it's just been growing. And so we want to actually bring the shame and guilt, the fear, the stuff that keeps it hidden, and actually bring it to the light. She brings up two themes really in addressing it. One, that one of the biggest solutions is community. That in this kind of crisis, the more people are private, the more it's tucked away, the more it's hidden, the harder it gets. And two, hope. Two, one of the biggest ways to treat, I think one of the quotes in the book had something to do with when you're facing a disease or a problem that's really difficult to solve, the first step is always hope. So, and those are things that the church can bring, that Christians can bring, that nobody else can bring. Community and hope that says, hey, community drives out shame. Community drives out shame and guilt that causes us to hide. And we're the ones that can actually bring hope. And something she doesn't bring up in there that I think is also important is we actually have a story that makes sense of life. They call alcohol addiction, suicide, drug addictions, death from these things, deaths from despair. And one of the things that kept coming up is that people who have no story that explains their life, no overarching story that says this is who you are, this is where you've come from, this is where you're heading. It's so hard to battle addiction. It's so hard to battle the addiction of a loved one when there is no story that makes sense of our lives, that gives it meaning and hope and purpose, driving out shame and guilt. And so the church, and Christians specifically, have the ability to join Jesus on mission in a world that's spiraling out of control with addiction. And so I read this book. It was eye-opening, really helpful to be thinking through these kind of things. But also it helped me go, hey, we can actually be a part of the solution to what's happening in the community around us. Instead of just handing out tickets saying, oh, here's a ticket to heaven, why don't you take it? Instead, we actually can bring hope and community that brings God's kingdom to bear right now in the lives of those who are either addicted or who have family members, loved ones, or just people in their circle because of their job being affected by this disease and by these addictions. So I highly recommend that book. Would love to see you pick it up, read it, and share your thoughts with me. Thanks.